Good afternoon to one and all. So let's start with the topic Indian monsoon because it is the single most important factor that decides the climate and weather of India. So before we know about how monsoon forms and how monsoon begins, let us discuss about. Can we just zoom it? Okay. Okay. Then it's good to zoom it out. So now let's understand how monsoon forms. So before that, let me tell you something about the pressure belts. As we know that on the earth itself, on the surface of earth, there are certain pressure belts that are present. As we know that on equator, we have our equatorial low pressure belt. Low pressure means we only talk about when there is a presence of warm air, we take it as a low pressure. But that is not the same. Whenever you find any convergence wind system, that is considered as a low air system. That means, suppose if winds are converged into a single place, be the air is warm or cold, that does not matter. If the air is converging, that means it is a low system. If the air and the wind are diverging, that means it is a high pressure system. So as we know, we on the equator we experience low pressure system. Why? Because the apparent motion of sun is only between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. As we know is summer solstice and winter solstice. So this is the heat maximum area that experiences direct sunlight and heat throughout the year. Here we experience the summer solstice on near about June 21, again equinox on September 21, again winter solstice on December 21. So this is the most heated area on the earth, that is equatorial low pressure belt, or we can say it as ITCZ, intertropical convergence zone, because all of the wind that are coming from the subsequent high pressure belt, be it from subtropical high pressure belt of northern hemisphere, be it subtropical high pressure belt from southern hemisphere, that tend to converge in the equatorial belt, and we call it as ITCZ. It is nothing but the net area of low pressure because it moves along with the presence of sun. Whenever sun moves, it moves accordingly. ITCZ. It is the main factor that causes monsoon or that begins monsoonal rainfall in India. How does that happen? Let's discuss that. So whenever this ITCZ moves, this is the position of equinox. This is the position of equinox as of March 21st. Around, we cannot sure that this is the equinox date, but yes, it is the approximation date. Around 21st of March, we experiences equinox every year. As soon as we go ahead, move ahead of equinox, that means sun is now entering into northern hemisphere with the apparent motion of sun towards the northern hemisphere, although it is the not movement of sun, it is the movement of earth, but to ease the subject we take it as that with the apparent motion of sun, the ITCZ also, can you just move that a bit, or it is just fixed? This line? Yes. Okay, no issue. You can press the select option. Now Okay. Yes, now it's fine. As soon as sun enters into the northern hemisphere, the net area of low pressure, that is the ITCZ, it also moves. It also moves along with it. So as long as it reaches the Tropic of Cancer, that means the net area between the ITCZ and subtropical high pressure belt of southern hemisphere and the constant shell is known as heartless shell of southern hemisphere. It becomes enlarged, it becomes bigger. So now the wind which tends to originate from the high pressure belt of southern hemisphere, that needs to cover a larger distance, because the heartless cell earlier it was between this much of area. Now the heartless cell has been extended to almost Tropic of Cancer. So now the wind which were originating earlier from the subtropical high pressure belt, and it was supposed to move till the presence of ITCZ on the equator. Now it needs to move till Tropic of Cancer. Now it needs to move farther area, almost double. Now the main thing is, we do not find the pressure patch, the pressure area, that is be it low pressure, be it high pressure. We do not find all the pressure in a linear way. We always find that in a patches. If I call ITCZ is a net pressure of low area, net low pressure area, that does not mean in the all along the ITCZ we find low pressure. No, only in patches we find low pressure. Let's for example Tibetan Plateau, northern India, Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, this area, Libya, Algeria. We are only concerned about the patches. So the main single important high pressure patch that present in southern hemisphere, that is Mascarene High. It is a group of islands consisted of Mauritius, Reunion Island and Rodriguez. These three islands combinedly consist the Mascarene High, which single-handedly is responsible for the origination of high pressure belt and which is responsible for the Indian monsoon. Now the wind which are originating from this high pressure patch, and we know it is southeasterly, southeast trade winds, or commonly known as easterlies, southeast trade winds, because now it has to move. Earlier the southeast trade winds was moving from Tropic of Capricorn till the equator, or we can say ITCZ, but now it has to move. As ITCZ has been shipped till Tropic of Cancer, now it has to move from Tropic of Capricorn to Tropic of Cancer. But how does it move? From this area it starts moving towards west, but after crossing equator, under the effect of Coriolis, it tends to move towards right, because we know in northern hemisphere the force of Coriolis towards right, and in southern hemisphere it tends to move towards left. Now it tends towards left and it moves towards right and enters into northern hemisphere as southwesterly. Earlier it was southeasterly, but after crossing the equator under the force of Coriolis, as it moves toward right, it becomes southwesterly. Now let's complete this cell. Here the wind originates from the Mascarene High, as I just discussed, consists of these three islands. Now it has to move from Tropic of Capricorn to equator towards its left. After crossing the equator, it under the force of Coriolis, it moves towards right. Then after hitting the ITCZ, it tends to rise, because it is the net area of low pressure. With the apparent motion of sun, now the sun is in Tropic of Cancer. With the apparent motion of sun, it tends to rise, and after hitting tropopause, once again, because we need to complete that cell. Earlier whatever heartless cell was performing, it was between Tropic of Capricorn and equator. Now as the ITCZ has shifted a bit towards northern hemisphere, we need to complete that cell as well. Now after hitting the tropopause, it needs to complete the cell. And how does it move? I have drawn the surface area, the surface air system in black ink. Now I am going to draw the upper air circulation through this orange ink. Now the air moves from masculine high. After crossing the equator, it tends towards right. After hitting tropopause, it once again it goes back to its original position because the cell needs to be completed. This along the heartless cell is not responsible for the monsoon. It is the only thing that can bring monsoon, but the quality of rainfall, but the burst of monsoon. Now we are experiencing a heavy rainfall throughout India, be it North India, be it South India. We are experiencing heavy rainfall, but the along the masculine high cannot guarantee us the burst or the quality of rainfall in India. So we have a number of factors that is associated which are responsible for the burst of monsoon or quality of rainfall. First of all, we must have heard that La Nina, La Nina, La Nina. What is that? Because the we tend to hear that only La Nina favors Indian monsoon.